There's a kind of person who moves quietly through the world. They don't speak much, not because they lack thoughts, but because their mind is already full. They notice everything: the tremor in someone's voice, the flicker of doubt behind a smile, the way light shifts across a wall as the day fades. To them, nothing is ordinary. Every moment hides a story. Every silence has a meaning. Maybe that's you, the one who sees too much, feels too deeply, and can't quite turn it off. You sit in a room and pick up what no one says, the tension in the air, the half-meant words, the tired eyes pretending to be fine. While others move on, you pause, caught in the details they never saw. People think you're quiet, but that quiet isn't emptiness. It's full of motion, full of thought. You don't just live life, you observe it. You replay moments, notice patterns, search for reasons. And sometimes that awareness feels like both a blessing and a weight. Because when you see the world so clearly, you can't unsee it. You feel what others ignore. You carry what they forget. And maybe that's what makes deep thinkers both rare and restless, always listening, always feeling, even in silence. Some minds don't rest. Even in silence, they hum like an engine that never turns off. They wander from thought to thought, connecting things that no one else would notice. To the outside world, it might look like daydreaming, but inside, it's a storm of meaning. Maybe you know that feeling. When your body is still, but your mind is miles away, replaying a moment, reimagining a word, wondering why things happen the way they do. You don't just think about what people say, you think about what they meant. You don't just see a moment, you see the story behind it. A deep mind is like a room full of mirrors. Every idea reflects another. Every memory finds a connection. That's why deep thinkers can turn a single sentence into an entire journey of thought. They look for patterns, for truth, for the thread that ties everything together. But that same depth can be exhausting, because when your mind never stops exploring, peace becomes something you have to earn. Even when the world is quiet, your thoughts keep echoing memories, possibilities, questions with no clear end. And yet, that's also where your beauty lives. You're not overthinking, you're understanding, you're tracing the invisible lines that hold life together. And while that can make you tired, it's also what makes you extraordinary, a mind that doesn't just exist, but endlessly seeks to make sense of everything it touches. If this feels like you, if your mind never stops weaving meaning from silence, share your thoughts below. I'd love to know what your inner world sounds like. People like you feel the world, not just see it. You don't walk into a room, you enter its atmosphere. You sense when something is off, even before anyone speaks. The shift in tone, the forced laughter, the small silence that others skip over, you catch them all. It's like your heart has antennas, tuned to every emotional frequency around you. Deep thinkers are often deeply sensitive. That sensitivity is their compass. It helps them understand others in ways words never could. But it also means they absorb too much. They carry moods that aren't theirs, emotions they never asked to feel. After long conversations or crowded rooms, they don't just feel tired, they feel drained. You might know this kind of exhaustion, the one that doesn't live in the body but in the soul. It's what happens when you've spent all day reading invisible stories in people's eyes. You want to help, to understand, to make sense of pain that isn't even yours. and by night, your mind still replays every detail, every tone, every look, trying to decode what was never said. That's the paradox of being sensitive. The same openness that makes you kind can also leave you raw. You can read people's energy like poetry, but sometimes you wish you didn't. Still, that sensitivity isn't weakness. It's perception. It's empathy in its purest form. The world needs people like you, the ones who feel too much, because you remind the rest of us what feeling really means. There's a moment that comes when you start seeing things too clearly, when the world stops being simple. You no longer just see people, you see their fears hiding behind confidence, their loneliness beneath the smiles. You see the tiny fractures in conversations, the small truths people bury in polite words. And once you start noticing, you can't go back. Awareness is a gift, but it cuts both ways. It lets you see beauty others, overlook a stranger's kindness, the courage behind someone's quiet. But it also shows you the cracks, the pretense, the masks, the small cruelties people commit without meaning to. You begin to realize that life is never black or white. Everything is layered, uncertain, fragile. Maybe that's why you sometimes feel older than you are, not in years, but in weight. Because when you see too deeply, the world can feel heavier. You can't laugh as easily, can't forget as quickly. You carry what others dismiss. And yet, that same awareness is what makes you compassionate. You understand what most people rush past. You sense when someone's breaking, even when they say they're fine. It hurts, yes, but it also connects you to truth, to empathy, to what's real. So if you ever feel burdened by how much you see, remember this. Awareness isn't your curse, it's your mirror. It reflects the world as it is messy, flawed, human, and it reminds you that seeing clearly isn't about judging life, it's about loving it, even when it hurts. There's a difference between thinking too much and thinking too deeply, but to most people, it looks the same. They'll tell you, you're overthinking again, when really, you're just trying to understand life on a level they don't see. Overthinking is when your mind loops around fear. What if I said the wrong thing? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? It's a restless search for control in a world that never guarantees it. But deep thinking, that's different. It isn't born from fear, it's born from wonder. It's the quiet curiosity that asks, why am I here? What truly matters? What does love mean when everything keeps changing? You can feel the difference inside yourself. Overthinking makes your chest tight, like you're trapped in your own mind. Deep thinking feels like standing at the edge of something vast, overwhelming, but somehow sacred. Still, when your thoughts run this deep, peace becomes hard to find. You might stay up at night, not worrying, but wondering, searching for answers that have no end. And that can make people think you're lost, when in truth, you're exploring. So if your mind won't stop asking questions, don't be ashamed of it. Curiosity isn't chaos, it's consciousness. The goal isn't to silence your thoughts, but to guide them, to let your questions lead you closer to meaning, not madness. Because sometimes the most beautiful minds are the ones brave enough to sit with the mystery, even when it never answers back. There comes a point when the mind starts doing what the heart was meant to do. You don't just feel anymore, you analyze the feeling. You turn emotions into puzzles, love into logic, pain into patterns. You don't cry. You study the reason behind the tears. You don't get angry. You trace the root of the anger until it becomes quiet. Maybe you've done this too. You tell yourself you're being self-aware, but really, you're protecting yourself. Because when life has hurt you enough, thinking feels safer than feeling. Thoughts can be managed, controlled, organized. Feelings, they're wild. They flood in, they ruin the order. And so you build walls of understanding, hoping logic will keep you from breaking. But over time, that control becomes its own kind of prison. You start noticing that joy feels distant, that laughter comes slower, that even love feels like something you observe instead of something you live. You can describe your emotions perfectly, but somehow you can't touch them. The truth is, you don't need to understand every emotion to heal it. Sometimes you just have to let it be there. To feel without explaining, to ache without fixing, to love without predicting the ending. Because life isn't meant to be solved, it's meant to be felt. And when you allow yourself to stop dissecting every heartbeat, you start to remember what it means to be fully alive, not as a thinker watching life happen, but as a soul finally feeling it. Some people move through life trying to win, but deep thinkers, they move through life trying to understand. They don't just want to know what happened, they want to know why. Why people change. Why love fades. Why pain keeps teaching lessons no one asked for. You might know that feeling, lying awake at night, turning moments over in your mind, trying to make sense of things that were never meant to be simple. You see every side of a story. You can understand the person who hurt you, even when you still ache from what they did. And that's the paradox of empathy. It softens you, but it also breaks you. When you see the world through everyone's eyes, judgment becomes impossible. You see how hurt people hurt others. You see how fear dresses itself as pride, how silence can be a kind of apology. You understand so deeply that you start carrying pain that isn't yours, and that weight, it can be crushing. Sometimes you wish you could unsee it all, to just be careless, thoughtless, numb, like people who move through life untouched. But you can't. You are built to feel, to notice, to connect the invisible threads between every heart. And maybe that's what makes you different. Your empathy isn't weakness, it's wisdom in disguise. You see what others ignore, and you love anyway, even when it hurts, even when no one sees it. Because deep down, you know that understanding is your way of loving the world. There's a strange truth about deep minds: they can understand everything except how to rest. You try to slow down, to quiet your thoughts, but the silence only makes them louder. You think about peace the same way you think about everything else, deeply, endlessly, until it slips away again. Maybe you've tried to stop thinking before. You've told yourself, just let it go. But your mind doesn't work that way. It keeps looping back, trying to solve what can't be solved. Not because you enjoy the noise, but because understanding feels like safety. You believe that if you can explain your pain, maybe it won't hurt as much. But here's the paradox. Peace doesn't come from answers. It comes from presence. From learning that you can live beside your thoughts without drowning in them. You don't have to fight your mind, you just have to anchor it. Sometimes that anchor is something small: your breath, the sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight through a window. Sometimes it's creating writing, drawing, walking, until your thoughts begin to unfold on their own. The goal isn't to empty your mind. It's to remind it that not every thought needs a conclusion, because meaning isn't always found by searching. Sometimes it appears when you stop running toward it, when you let the moment be enough, not perfect, not explained, just here. That's when depth turns into peace, when thinking becomes gentle again, when your mind finally exhales and your soul remembers what stillness feels like. When deep thinkers love, they don't love halfway. They love with their entire mind, carefully, completely, quietly. To them, love isn't a feeling that happens, it's something they build. They study it, nurture it, and hold it like something fragile and sacred. They remember every detail, the words you said, the way your voice changed when you spoke about your dreams, the small silence you left after saying, "I'm fine." They don't just listen, they absorb. They memorize the emotional fingerprint of every moment with you. But loving this deeply comes with a cost. Because when they give all of themselves, their patience, their curiosity, their hope. And when that love isn't returned with the same awareness, it cuts deep. It's not rejection that hurts most. It's the emptiness of being unseen. Maybe you've felt that giving someone the map of your soul only to realize they never learned to read it. So you start holding back, not because you stopped caring, but because you're afraid of being misunderstood again. Still, when a deep thinker finds someone who sees them, truly sees, it's like coming home. They open completely. They speak in the language of attention, remembering, noticing, understanding. Their love isn't loud, but it's real. It's not about grand gestures. It's about presence, about saying, "I see you, I hear you, I know you." Because for them, love isn't about possession. It's about reflection, finding another soul who understands the quiet places inside their own. In a world that moves too fast, your depth is a kind of light. While others rush to speak, you pause to understand. While they chase certainty, you sit with questions. You see the layers beneath everything, the beauty in broken things, the honesty inside silence. Sometimes that makes you feel out of place, like you're living at a slower rhythm than the rest of the world. But maybe that's not a flaw. Maybe it's your gift, because depth doesn't mean darkness. It means seeing clearly enough to find light even in the hardest places. Your quietness, your thoughtfulness, your endless curiosity, they're not weaknesses, they're your way of honoring life. You turn noise into meaning, chaos into clarity, and moments into stories that last. That's rare, that's powerful. So don't shrink your depth to fit a shallow world. Let it shine. Let it be the reason someone else feels understood. And if this message spoke to you, if you've ever felt like the quiet observer in a loud world, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, share your story. Because this is a place for minds like yours where depth isn't something to hide, but something to celebrate.